In this video, I take a break from sim racing to review a first-person shooter on my Quest 3, Pavlov Shack, and all from an older gamer's perspective. Despite being an avowed sim racer, every now and then I need a change of pace and I like to play something else that's VR related. In this case, Pavlov Shack, the standalone version of Pavlov VR. Pavlov Shack is a fast-paced, multiplayer first-person shooter similar in style to Counter-Strike or Battlefield and a number of other titles that I have spent far too long playing. The difference here is Pavlov VR puts you right into the battle, first-person VR style, with enemies up close and personal, to the point where rounding a corner and bumping into an enemy combatant can literally be a jump scare. They really are in your face, tall as real soldiers, and compared with playing a first-person shooter on a flat screen, the VR version of this long-running genre is totally immersive. This is helped by the realistic weapon handling and actual weapon loading that mimics the real guns in real life. There's no pushing the R key to reload here. And because you are in VR, if you want to actually take cover, there's no C key either. So to crouch, you have to bend over, go down on a knee, whatever, but you actually have to physically do this if you want to avoid being shot. And if you want to go prone, you have to literally lay on the ground and then get back up again. It's a very physical game. And to say this game is immersive is an understatement. You actually have to play Pavlov to understand just what this really means. Combine all of this with simplistic game modes that allow you to just jump in and just have fun, and you have a very addictive VR game, albeit when you start playing, most of that fun will involve being shot a lot. Now, there are other games in this genre, in VR, but for whatever reason, I have stuck with Pavlov for a number of years now. The enjoyability of this game, though, has never waned for me, probably because of mod support, which introduces community-created maps and even weapons. And some of those maps are a lot of fun and add a great deal of value to an already cool game. Now the Quest 3 is in my life, and Pavlov has graduated from beta on the App Lab to an actual Metastore game. Buying this game was a no-brainer for me, and to be honest, since it released last week, I haven't been able to stop playing it. Features. Feature-wise, the gameplay is pretty much the same as it always has done, albeit that there is now a bewildering array of game types. I've tried most of them, and to be honest, unless I have time to invest in anything more complex, Team Deathmatch is the one I keep coming back to. Although I am getting a bit worn down by joining random teams, and probably need to find a group of regulars to team up with. If there are any other older gamers out there that need another older teammate, let me know, preferably on a European server. Weapons-wise, apart from some new skins, I'm not aware of any new weapons being added to Pavlov Shack for this release. If you know, comment below. But honestly, there are already so many weapons in this game. Who needs more? Plus, the AK is probably always going to be the go-to weapon. Although I am finding some of the M4s set to 3-shot burst mode another favourable choice. That is, when I am not sniping. On the map front, there are a number of beautiful looking arenas of death and destruction, with Pinewood being one of the more aesthetically pleasing, even if you can't climb the crane. And the harbour is also breathtakingly beautiful, and a fun place to run around killing the other team. And if you want to be boring, you can always jump into the classic maps like Bridge, which is an ideal place for sniping and grenade throwing, and a great place to learn how to use smoke grenades. Bridge does look as though it's had some minor graphical upgrades, but the one that really had a makeover is another of my favourites, the container yard, which looks fantastic now in this new version. But don't worry purists, the OG version is still available to play. If these maps aren't enough for you, there are a large number of community-supplied maps, including this one that's set in McDonald's drive-thru, where all the players are either Burger King or Ronald. Yeah, it's wacky. And there are a number of callback maps replicating some of the Call of Duty classics. There is just so much content here in Pavlov Shack. It's a steal at $20. It really is. There are also plenty of other game modes instead of Team Deathmatch. Push is one of the more tactical long-term games that you can play there, sort of a capture the flag type of game. And of course there's TTT, which you either love or loathe, and I'm firmly in the latter camp. Regardless of this, whatever style of game you favour, or whatever map you like, there is probably a game server waiting for you to enter and play to your heart's content, any time of day. And if you get bored and need a break from the multiplayer world, there are a number of cool single-player games included in Pavlov Shack, including a zombie one, which is not for the faint-hearted, as these are the fast-moving type of zombies that everyone really hates. Sort of 28-day later type thing. And they are bloody terrifying, even more so in VR. Don't worry if none of this means anything to you. There are full tutorials you can run through which literally tells you what to do and how to do it.
And hold trigger to grab a magazine. Place the magazine into the weapon. Grab the charging handle with your offhand using trigger and chamber around. Grip the weapon with your offhand to stabilize it. Shoot all the targets to continue.
Along with a fun target game you can use with any of the weapons, so that you can get an idea of how to reload and how to aim. If you've never played this type of game in VR before, you will be advised to spend some time in the training areas. Comparisons between Shack and PCVR. At this point, the avid PCVR gamer is going to be frothing at the mouth and pointing to all the disadvantages of playing a standalone Quest game, as opposed to playing the PCVR one via Steam or something like that. And to be brutally honest, they wouldn't be wrong. So it's worth mentioning the major differences between the two versions. Firstly, the number of players you can have in Pavlov Shack is often less than Pavlov PCVR. In fact, a lot of the PCVR maps are configured for a total of 24 players, 12 aside. Although it has to be said that there are some maps included with the PCVR version that are the classic 5 aside, a total of 10 players, and that's fine. Those games are fun, and the ones where there are more, sometimes more than 24 players, are also cool, but you do need a computer that can cope with that number of players all shooting at each other all the time. Shack copies most of its PCVR siblings population count, with the default map set at 5 per side for a total of 10 players per match. That might sound like a small number of players, but trust me, 5 per side in most styles of game is plenty and you won't get bored. But that also depends on what type of game mode you play and which map you play it on. However, there is also an option in Shack of starting a server with more players per side than the default of 5 aside, and I've seen games that had upwards of 20 players. You will see a performance hit when linking to those servers, more so than if you're linking to a similarly populated server on the PCVR version, but Shack will warn you before you connect to one of those more populated maps, and be aware that doing so may give you a performance that is not as playable on Shack as it is on PCVR, with some lagging and some high pings. The bottom line is, if massive battles with larger player bases is your thing, PCVR is the winner. But if you enjoy intense matches against slightly smaller and less frantic number of players, Shack will serve you just fine. In terms of performance, I found both versions to be about equal when they were played at 5-a-side games, in that both versions are usually rock solid and don't have too many glitches. Mostly, if my game does go a bit clanky, I usually find it's my internet connection that's the problem. Or I've connected to an American server and my ping time is just not good enough for a fast-paced game like Pavlov Shack. Granted, performance of Shack is about equal to PCVR because the graphics are not quite as good. I mean, they are still fantastic on the Quest 3 for a standalone game. They really are. If you are searching for a game that shows you just how good the standalone graphics on this headset can be in a multiplayer, this is what you need to be looking at. I honestly haven't seen anything better for multiplayer standalone on the Quest 3. If you know of a better looking multiplayer standalone game, again, let me know in the comments below. That being said, the PCVR version is of course going to offer better graphics, depending of course on how you connect your Quest to your computer and how powerful your graphics card is. I have a 3070 and a decent router. It's not a 6E, but it's enough. And that's good enough for me to crank up everything to ultra on the PCVR version. Here you can see the AK PCVR on the left and the Quest 3 on the right. If I just freeze the image here, you can see the level of detail on the PCVR is slightly better than the Quest 3, but it's not what I would call a deal breaker. Same for the game scenery. Here is the data center on the left in PCVR and on the right on the Quest 3. They're about the same. I mean, you can see some differences, but when you're in the middle of a game, it's nothing. Trust me, when you play Pavlov Shack, you might be aware of a slight graphical climb down, but only when you first start playing. After a very short amount of time, that feeling will fade away as the graphics are really damn good. Enough that you will soon forget this is a standalone game. Conclusion. The version that you can buy now on the Meta Store is not, in all honesty, that much different from the last beta version that many of you have been playing via the App Lab. There are some more maps, a friends list that you can add your favorite players to if you can work out how it works. A block list that also, if you can work out how it works, can be used to block those you find less desirable. There is also, for some people who pre-ordered, a number of weapon skins. But by and large, if you played this game on the App Lab as a beta, you're probably not going to notice that much difference between the beta and the release version. For me, it has always been and remains a brilliant game. The realistic weapon loading and handling is brilliant. The maps are diverse enough to maintain my interest, and the easy access to community creating mod maps is the icing on the cake. As I mentioned before, I've played this game for years, and I can't see that stopping anytime soon. The only thing I really don't like about this game is the random nature of the player base, and you can end up sometimes on servers with people who are just bloody annoying, and that does get old very quickly. But it's easy enough to find an alternative server to play on. It's not a massive problem. It's just more of an irritation when you just want to play and get on with it, and then the world gets in the way, people and stuff, you know. But hey, that's multiplayer, right? And if it all gets too much for you, there is always offline mode. That minor negative point aside, I would say that if you're looking for a fun game, a shoot 'em up where you can just drop in, blast away for a while, then log off when you've had enough, Pavlov is the game you need to buy. It's brilliant and immersive fun with a value for fun factor that is hard to beat. And on top of that, you can play it all without having to own a powerhouse of a PC. Until next time, stay safe and enjoy VR. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click the like button, and if you haven't already done so, subscribe. Click the little bell icon if you want to be notified of any future videos.